Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. We're going to be continuing our game development project tonight, despite hardware issues attempting to intervene. Got that resolved for now, so we'll see how it go. Let's check in with the kitties. We do have 4 of them visible. Sammy is demanding extra attention on my lap right now. She is doing that contort into my hands thing. We have Ember across from the keyboard, Sky up in his tree, and Mason and Sherbet top to bottom there on the bed. Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Oof. I got back from frantically running to a shop for some cabling. Oh, ow, my spine. All right, let's see here. I worked on some new art for the game, just a little thing, but you can see I made a little yarn ball. It roll. Way more sprites to go, but there's another one. There's another one. Bite, miss, don't bite. Yeah, well, you were scratching my back. Oh, okay. So, we've got some of the cascading movement working, and performance is pretty solid still. No, most of them aren't terribly hungry. They've had sufficient kibble. Okay, we're still holding at 60 frames a second. We're getting plenty of creatures spawning to be able to fill the screen. We're able to maintain pretty good FPS with this. So what we want to start with today is getting more movement options in place. So one, we can chain them further. I want to see if there's a limit on performance based on how many different movement patterns we can attach. Then we want to move on to concepts like positioning and number of shots. Is this the funny? I don't know if you'll find it funny. Okay. Face the player, move straight line, move to player. Move to player is a special case. This is just for monsters. It is meant to be the only thing that most of the monsters do. There will probably be some other ones. Hey there, Pyro in Titan. I don't recall seeing you, or I have forgotten. It is a quick reminder, I do have pinned at the top of the YouTube chats a link to the other stream in case you are watching in a format that you don't prefer. There are widescreen and tall form streams. They are separate though, so if I'm talking to somebody, I might be talking to somebody in the other chat. Do I think it's worth it to get a Vtuber, or are you asking someone else? Regardless, I'll answer. Jumping right into getting a full Vtuber model, a live 2D model made, might be an expense that you don't want to commit to if you're just thinking about getting into streaming. I would suggest starting with a PNG, a still image VTubers first. If you're going to go down that road, if you want to try the VTube angle on it, you can get free programs to kind of flow together multiple different images, whether they're animated images or not, to create the illusion of talking and movement kind of stuff, but won't be rigged like this. The cost differential is substantial. I can never remember what it's called, but there is a commercial kind of build a 3D avatar bit of software that uses different tracking options and the like that I know a lot of people will use. That's another entry-level thing. Vroid Studio. Thank you, Sal. And there's also kind of a very particular build your own live 2D one that I think it's in the same school as Vroid. If you're using it, it is rapidly apparent that you're using it. I would call that a really good kickoff point for kind of building an identity if you want to do that. But live 2D models can get very expensive. High-end 3D models can get very expensive. But dip your toe in first. Feel it out. See if it's something you even like to do. It would be a shame to shell out big money for equipment and art and discover that you really don't like streaming after all. Okay, so other movement types. Let's see. How about... Let's try to make like a sine wave, like an S-curve type. I want to do that now. I'd actually been thinking about changing these from movements to movers. Let's stick with movement for now. Sometimes I get real fixated on things like naming. Score. I think we also need to figure out a way to pass in arbitrary values to some of these. As in kind of like metadata variables. I don't like that all that much, but being able to do things like a higher frequency, wider or higher amplitude style S-curve using the same code would be good. It's movement, and thus it needs to return a movement type. And because it needs a movement type, we need to make sure that we get that in constants. I just realized I don't need these numbers, and I shouldn't use these numbers. Using these numbers is an error surface. It's better to have this do it at compile time. Since this is the default value, we can force it. I wonder if... Don't think that's necessary, is it? We're going to find out in a moment. By not putting the numbers, I can add to it and move them around freely, and it should default in a sequence of integers during compile. Hasn't exploded. S-curve. So then it's not going to influence targeting. And we need an overtime delta here. Because what we need to do is essentially say what was its last value. Oh. It's not a function, it's a variable. So we're going to take direction to use as it is, and we're going to tilt it a number of degrees based on a stored value. For now, we're going to make that a fixed value. So it'll be kind of like a metronome pattern. Left, right, left, right, left, right kind of thing. With the higher the movement being applied to that the more impact it will have. So move to player will set the whole movement. Move straight line adds its speed-based movement. So it's going to be the same pattern as move straight line. We're actually going to take that in there. So this is it takes the direction to use and multiplies by speed. So we need to calculate the angle to rotate direction to use as variable current direction is a vector 2 equal to direction to use dot normalized. So this is where we're currently facing. And that will influence everything following it, but it will only it only applies its initial influence to the first thing that comes in, to direction to use that comes in. So 2 consecutive S-curves will get weird. But one should only apply the S-curve coming in. So generally a face the target or similar is what we're really going to be dealing with. Hello, Garrett. Welcome. I am currently talking through an algorithm for an S-curve pattern here. In movement, we're going to apply a oscillating turn to anything that comes into this. We're doing that so we can test, more strenuously test movement logic here. Now, I could also just daisy chain a series of move straight lines, but that's not as interesting. Hello, Ember. Ember has now joined me for pets. Nice, Garrett. Nice, thank you. Okay, so how do we do this? We want that. Or we're going to apply changed movement based on our own speed. We might end up changing the speed concept entirely and only apply it later in the process, or to use a fixed speed across all of them. Oscillating speed Oh, actually, yeah, change variable speed, like speed over a scale. Changing over time would be another good type of movement we could use. Start and stop would be another good one. Start and stop actually kind of tricky. It would... No, start and stop wouldn't actually be tricky thinking on it. It's you effectively have oscillating movement that hits a zero and might have a very sharp curve. So it could be like an on-off switch that every so often it says, hey, I'm going to change the movement, on or off, and it would negate all prior movement or allow all prior movement to go through. So there would be some moments where you could have configurations where that did nothing, and you could have configurations where that was very impactful. But since it would zero target movement out and potentially change the direction going out into the next ones, if this direction was zeroed, subsequent things would need to create their own direction, because this would be zero coming in. So if we had a stop kind of logic where it just stopped moving, an S-curve after it would do nothing because it wouldn't have a direction coming in. It would effectively have a zero vector. But that's another interesting pattern. I do like that one. Let's do that today too. Ember. Hey. Miss. All right. I don't know what you call that. So there's the time for a full cycle. Let's do that. So this is the last time unit. Last time and full cycle time. So last time increments up. And full cycle time is how long it'll take us. Spiral out and spiral in are another couple good ones. And they're also useful for projectiles and the like. Oh. Yeah, changing motion. Where after a period of time, it negates all prior motion, period. Could be interesting. So, for example, you have spiral motion, and you have a series of switches on it later that would control that. So orbit around them and then plunge inward. I wonder how we would do that. It could just be built into the movement itself. And I think we'll start with that, is that there are multiple stages inside of it. With its first stage being orbiting and its second stage being switching over. I would like to have a way to build that into a projectile, though, where after a period of time, a subsequent movement eats a prior one or something like that. Or a way for a given movement to stop all subsequent ones. So like a bridge inside it, like a crossing point where up until the timer it won't let movement through, and after the timer that becomes the starting point, kind of thing. interesting idea. That one's trickier, but it's an interesting one. Interesting one. Okay. So how do we do this? We have a back and forth motion. We could do 360 minus 180. But that's not quite right. That would still create a sudden lurch backwards, where it would be kind of a bouncing motion. It needs to be a metronome, so we have to do like a sine wave motion to it. But how would we do? Because we need to change the angle to that vector. And it needs to be adjusted based on a y. I think we have to just use like a sine function, but what do we put into it? Oh, quick check here. A quick check here. Math has escaped me just yet, so we're gonna bash some stuff here. So we should have. So let's look this up and see what we've got. So we get an existing angle in, and that will give us the sine curve of it. But we would need to have... It's not really what we're looking for. So what we want is we could use something like we could brute force this. So let's just start there because trigonometry is some distance behind me. Okay, so we have a max height. We have a max left, right. And we have an over time. So that left-right scale is going to slide back and forth. And we need... That would impact... This would be a 90-degree turn, would be the left-right. So it's really an angle that we've got going between 90 degrees rotated and negative 90 degrees rotated. So how do we get the back and forth with some math and a time marker? So it needs to go like up to 90, then back down to negative 90, then back up to 90. We could have it built in and just have that, but I feel like we want a function based off of time. Rotation is straightforward, because over time we can just rotate 360. Doing okay, Drew? We're puzzling over some math here. So if we have a full cycle, if a full cycle is returning to 0 after a right-left, that means we have one where it arcs out and comes back to 0, and then the other side arcs out and comes back to 0. So half of a cycle is out and back. So a quarter of the cycle is all the way out. So it will scale out. Hey there, Wolf. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So in a quarter of the cycle time, it goes all the way out in one direction. Then in half the cycle time, it goes all the way over to the other direction. And then in a quarter of the cycle time, it goes back. Now we could alternately look at that as two full cycles of... We could just look at it as the half cycle of out and back, out and back. But how do we toggle it? How do we toggle it cleanly, I should say? Okay, full cycle time should be our toggle, because this is going to be a mod. So mod full cycle time will get us how far we are into the current cycle. Halfway through the current cycle is the maxed out value. Where it's going to return, and then we have a left-right. Ugh, this feels so messy. This feels so messy. If anybody knows how to do a sine curve in an arbitrary direction, let me know. Or how we would actually do it. Let's look at that again. And it's just... We're trying to create a sine wave-like motion, Drew. So that sort of like up, down kind of drift. And hello, Jackson. And I'm trying to figure out a way to do it by math that isn't just brute forcing it into a zigzag. We're looking at a smooth kind of vector turn as opposed to a really sharp decay. I don't, Jackson. Sadly, I don't. It do be like that a lot. It rotated 360 degrees. Well, thanks for swinging by. And again, folks, I apologize if I don't recognize somebody. If I don't interact with somebody on a constant basis, it's very possible that I will forget a name. This is not meant to slight you. This is just the way the brain works. So acute angles we could definitely do with like a series of toggles. Like, is it time to go left? Is it time to go right? Modulate over time. Let's do sine wave over the course of 360 degrees converted to a radian. And that will get us a 0 to 1. Potentially a 0 to -1. And then we can apply that to the current vector and turn it accordingly. So we have an amplitude that we could put on here. I think it's amplitude, the tallness. So we get a oof. We need to get okay. We're just not going to have this change the movement, and we're just going to debug print out the value. So full cycle time, we're going to say every second it does a full cycle. So it's always going to be mod 1. Oh, but we don't even have a delta at this. We're just asserting this is what it should move without delta. That's not good, actually. I think every one of the movements should have delta. Yeah. Because otherwise we can't do over time based effects. They would only be able to say, this is how often I've been triggered, which means more physics frames makes it happen faster. That's not what we want. Okay, then in each movement type, we have to have a delta added to it if it is in move here. You. So we're going to add the multiply by delta into each of the movements itself. That way we can have a passage of time added into the movement logic. In theory, we don't need to multiply by delta in this, but we are going to do that. Like, we could keep that multiply by delta outside of it, but I'd rather have... If we're going to have delta accounted for, then we should have the movement affected. Let's check our targeting values and make sure we have a... Yep, we have a move here. See, we could call move initially and get those values the same way. But this is meant to be a, without moving the object, give me what direction you would move in. We'll return to that later. Okay, this gives us a delta. Print debug off of this, and it will be a string of sine of degrees to radians of 360.0 times last time is equal to last time plus delta modulated by full cycle time. Oh. Okay, no, we got this. We've still got this. Set to an integer. This should result in an integer. This is... We have a float, and modulo won't do it for us. It won't give us the remainder, which is sad. I mean, modulo doesn't really do anything for full integers. Because that should be... No, it still would. Okay, how do we do? Alright, alright. Divided by full cycle time. Which is an integer is equal to this. Do this. Could just be plus equals. So then we do this. And we're going to force it into an int, which should give us a fixed number of iterations. So then we're going to be minus equals iterations times that. So we look at the last moment that we checked here. We count how many iterations there were, and we subtract it out because we really only care what the current value is. This could still throw things off, because the fewer physics intervals there are, the less this swings. But we're going to roll with it for now. So then we go into our yarn ball template here. Random direction, and then we're going to have a move straight line. Nope, nope, not move straight line, move S. Should have an entity template here. Then we go into our constants. Should have move S curve now. Which means we need to reload the project. Move S curve has a parse error. Are you trying to make a Onceler reference, Don? Oh, we need to go into the entity. Also need to pass in delta here. Having a nice day, Squinnick. Thank you. What do we do? Say that right? Anyhow. Okay, so we move in an S-curve. We're just printing that out. We need to go into the template, and we should be able to add an element of move S-curve now. Yeah. Hello, Sniper. We'll have as much strength in the S-curve movement as the existing one, so we should be seeing what I'm hoping for is that we're going to get some sort of oscillation out of this. Here's our template. We don't have a nil. Alright, this is the yarn ball. So we shouldn't have a nil here. Alright, Drill. Drew. Oh, that's why. So we need our movement pool. S-curve, which will have a move S-curve. S-curve. Just so. Okay, that should be spamming values here. Okay. So then I think this is getting us what we want. And float is equal to that. That's an angle in radians. Then direction dot rotated angle to use. Okay, well, they're wiggling. They're wiggling. Okay, but we also need to go into entity, into our movement loop. Well, they wiggle, but they don't nearly wiggle fast enough. Let's collapse more of these so I can find more of this stuff. Okay, we get a delta into move. We iterate over them. We don't do another delta change. Okay. Make sure the player is moving appropriately here. Player is moving correctly, blobs are not. Move to player. Times delta. And there they go. Okay, so now we need a nastier S-curve here, which should be influenced by this. Might go terribly wrong. Okay, let's cull down the blob spawn rate here. Which I think we currently just have in our game logic. We don't want double projectiles just yet. We're just going to set that to 0 for our interval. All right, so our initial we want our initial angle to use to be 0. It's a little off. I think that's still okay. We need a way to change the amplitude without changing the speed. All right, let's... Hey there, Ethan. What if... Move in an S curve first. And hey, pause. We made some yarn ball sprites, Don. And hello, Tass. This is getting us the curvature that we want, but I don't know how to get the speed that we want. What was the contest, pause? I don't know how to get the arc that we want, I should say. All right, let's make... The angle is kind of doing what we want already. This game is inspired a lot by the general character lore and concepts. It's only 96 if we do 192. The problem is that we're getting a greater horizontal speed. Oh, game mechanics is like Vampire Survivors. General game mechanics. The weapons, the way I'm building the weapons, I want it to be kind of Noida reminiscent. So we're trying to make it so that the movement of a lot of the behaviors of projectiles are modular, such that the player would be adding little modules and making changes as the game goes on. This... I think the plus should matter in that scenario, because no matter what, this should be getting processed first. Is we really have two vectors going on. We have we rotate it Because one possibility would be just to apply. That's a good opportunity while I'm thinking on this. Switch on over, we'll show the cats. We can currently see 4 of them. Sky up in his tree, Ember across from the keyboard, and Mason and Sherbet on the bed. We got some belly from Sherbet, making himself comfy. Don, that is very much... I think that's very much a good principle for that we're going for here. Is you want to get kind of an omni radius going on. Wait. That should get us... It's kind of what we want, but this is getting us a fraction between... This back a moment. This is getting us between 0 and 1. So we want... to 90 times angle to use. That is degrees to radians. Gives us more wiggle here. But we're still being limited by the speed that we pass in, and that's going to create horizontal velocity. We just want left-right velocity. So I think this is spitting out radians. So we're gonna remove that. So what if instead we get an offset? So right now we're getting the current one rotated. Which should assert that push. How do we do that? Because this should get us the oscillating left-right that we want, as far as where it goes. But what we really want is a speed length. So we don't want it to push forward. We only want the left-right push. So we need the vector What we'd want is the vector from its current position to the proposed position, angled by this, and then we want to get the point between those two. So, here. Minute. Fixing stuff. Make this less blinding. So if we have like, don't want just 2 points, I want the actual line. So if I have this line, right now, what it's doing is that it's applying another one like that based on the speed, which is getting us more, which is getting us this extra movement here. But what I actually want is this guy and determining this. So we want this one here. And we want to apply that so that we're getting it shifting left and right based on this vector. As in, we want this line to grow without pushing to the side. We want to shove it outward, but not forward. So how do we do that? We want that one. You know what? Let's pivot and think about it that way. Yeah, this is like making an S curve there. Braxton, we're making a game and we're trying to set up a S curving movement. Okay, so we're applying an additive vector here, but that's not really what we want. We want to rotate it. So we could just do this. We're making a Vampire Survivor style game. Okay, well, it's wiggling, but it's not moving. I have been making the artwork, yes. Yeah, now we need to make it wider. So this gives us the angle of motion, but we need to pivot it further. Okay, let's... Yep, yep. So that jitters it. Let's pivot it out. Okay, we're definitely getting some of the pivot, but I want to be able to increase the amplitude even further. So this doesn't feel like it's going to work the way I want it to. Because I'm not... Yeah, we need to have... Hmm. Let's... Hey there, Lucas. I've always liked pixel art, and I ended up making a mod for a game called Noida, and that was a very like crunchy pixel game as far as graphics. So it required figuring out how to make very tiny pixel art that is still expressive. We're getting the iteration. We want to slow it down as far as we want the horizontal movement to stay as it was, potentially. The speed multiplier, I think, is what we want to be doing. Because this will effectively slow it down, is what this ends up doing. Because we're rotating the vector around, so whatever speed has come into it has now been redirected. We're using Godot. This is Godot 4. We're using all GD script for it currently. Art-wise, I'm generally using a sprite. I oscillate between that and Krita, but I find that there's a lot of utilities that A Sprite has that make pixel art easier. at this level. If I were doing higher res stuff, I'd probably be using Krita. Um, wonder. Now this changes it off of what it was. So I still think. So again, let's. So blinding. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got a vector coming in. We're rotating that vector based on the sine curve. So we're doing this little guy right there. But what we want is to change it so that the curve happens more slowly, that we get a slower arc out of it. But we're still being influenced very heavily by that pivot. What if float 0? It's not what I wanted, but look, they're doing a little dance. All right, faster it moves, the less time it thinks it's spent. All right, that's going to change. Oh, that exploded at something fierce. It takes time and practice, Lucas, and that time and practice is related to which tools, which language you're using. So I've been doing this for, let's say, 130 hours now, working in Godot using GDScript. I've programmed a lot previous in my life, but this is it's day 40 something of this project. And we do maybe 3+ hours a day that we're streaming it. Let's... Not that. We wanted to spend longer on any given angle. So if we do that, the speed is 2. Okay. Speed is 5. Okay, and then if we increase the regular speed, we're going to go out to our camera view here. I think that's doing what we want. The speed in this case, it's not really the speed. Or at least it's a multiplier, it's a divisor on how much we're changing the angle. So the more we increase the speed, the harsher that's going to get. So if the speed is 0.1, so the faster it changes the angle, the faster we get in that regard. 10, and then we do 48. We can definitely see the angle being described in that case. We wanted it to go faster. We would need to accelerate last time, which means our divisor needs to be greater, or I'm sorry, less than 1. Our speed needs to be less than 1, but greater than 0, you know? But that still doesn't give us amplitude as much. No matter what, there's going to be a curve based on that. If we curve it first. Oh, okay. We get no movement. We get no movement out of that. If hey, we're seeing the jitter there. Okay. The more movement there is before it, the more emphatic that is. At the moment, what we're doing is we're just setting it up so that the projectiles can move in different ways. This is, S-curve movement. So we want them to kind of wobble kind of side to side as they move. That doesn't mean that this particular projectile is going to move that way. But it's more that projectiles could move this way. Because we're making the system modular. We're kind of gluing pieces together. Slower arc change. And let's increase the rate at which we're spawning them just to not that much. Okay. So this is where we're rotating it, but we're letting it keep its original speed. Slower rotation is going to be higher arcs and, slower changes in the angle. Which means we're still going to get long arcs. If we multiply by speed, this changes the angle faster. What I'm hoping for is greater amplitude. So here, let's make a testing movement type here. It's going to extend a movement. It is move right. Then we go into our constants. We're going to add right, go into movement pool. Then movement, right? Yeah. There, we have testing movement. Oh, we need to reload. Then if I go into our templates, instead of move straight line, I'm gonna move right. Okay. So what I'm trying to get is a way to increase the amplitude, the up-down of this curve, as well as make it consistent. Because the straight right should be down the middle of a block. But we're getting, over time, we're getting some wobble there. Radians, 2 degrees, angle to use. Isn't it? Move right is always going to be supplying a steady movement to the right. Makes sense, don't it? Move right is going at a steady speed as well, about 2 squares per unit time. We're changing the direction based on... Oh, but our cycle time... Yes, Tired, we're making a game. Our cycle time still needs to be in there. This is how long it should take before we do a full rotation. Question is this even correct? Is this what we want? I want to get... All right, we're just going to leave that here for now. I do not have an Oculus. Okay, we should be arcing out properly. Okay, what we're changing with this is to say, unless last time is less than 1, which is 1 second, don't change the movement. So we're going to get, yeah, that. Now the fact that it's doing... Oh, okay. I also know what's happening here. Movements are pooled. Movements are pooled. So if we go into our movement object here, we need to add an init to all movements with stored items. Because this is being reused. This is being reused. They should not be. Where's our movement pool? It's up in our globals. As soon as they started getting reused, we started having the problem. So we need to add the concept of resetting them. So in a movement object, which has speed, all of that, we need to change them so that they are configured properly. We're going to leave type alone. That is overridden by the child. Okay, so initialize will reset it to nothing. And then in each movement type, if we have local variables, we need to have function initialize spelled correctly because it's actually really important here. Super class initialize. Should be the syntax. We're going to leave this alone for now. We're just going to that. Now we have to actually use it. Good. Okay, we got it. Now they should keep doing this. No matter how long continues, they should keep doing this down and then straight, down and then straight. All right, so one rotation wait. Okay, let's do 2 seconds. Okay, this still isn't quite right because we're not getting the full curve back up. This is influencing the direction incorrectly. Because as soon as we can hit here, we stop influencing the motion. It's always pushing it right, but we're only ever getting the negative amplitude here. which is... Well, we're getting negative angles. It's just that we're not going for as long as we should. Effectively, we're only getting the lower time. Same thing still. So it's not that. I don't think this will change it either. But this is the marker that we need to mess with as far as amplitude. It's not the amount of time we should be doing. It's this guy. So positive directions are down and right. And we're getting angles that are kind of to the extent that we want. It's our template for our yarn ball here. But we're only getting the lower side of it. It's never going to the upper side. So the rotation only goes down, up, down, up. We need to set it so it starts in the middle. Okay. No, that's not quite it. So if you watch, they come out kind of straight. They're diving down, but we'd almost want them to be... I think this is just kind of the nature of it. But it needs to be pivoting faster is, I guess, the thing. Templates don't. Hello again, guy. What? What? I don't know what's going on there. This is not supposed to happen at all, by the way. But why? This would imply that the player entity got snatched. Well, we got to see if that happens again. Thing is, the player entity should never be entering the pool. It's never getting removed. So the idea that the camera just decided to wander off into oblivion is kind of weird. You know, this is the terrifying kind of circumstance where something really weird happened, and we don't know why. Exactly, Dodd. So we're getting the curvature up, but we need to extend the curvature up to the other side of it. So, I mean, just for reference here, just to be sure. We're creating 10 of them a second right now. So we can get neat effects by doing things like this. But as soon as we stop, we can see they'll go back into the S-curve down. If it picked back up after, that would be fine. Because we're... Braxton, it's a bug that it doesn't go back up above the player. Right now, it's curving properly below the player, but the arc should carry it above. In theory. This creates a perpetually increasing value which should cycle it. I don't know. No. Equal to last time divided by full cycle time. This time equals iterations times full cycle time. I've never made a horror game, Braxton. I try to, Tired. It is, I get caught up in the code now and again, so forgive me if I miss some stuff. Okay. There. We had to offset it by 90 degrees. Okay, so now we have two variables in place, though. We're slowing the clock. We're slowing the rotation. By speed. When those things hit monsters, they'll do damage to them. But we're not to that point yet, Deco. I've seen pixel horror games. Sadly, a whole lot of them end up being survival horror, and I'm not a fan of that genre. It tends to devolve into closets and jump scares. Does this ever really matter? So full cycle time doesn't really matter. We're just keeping the value from 0 to 1. It looks like it cycles. Psychological and cosmic horror are both very good areas, Dodd. I do like those. The trick is they get mis-executed quite a lot, too. Okay, the faster... the greater the speed of the angle here, of the angle change. Now we need to get amplitude in there. How do we get amplitude in there? In theory, greater speed should do that. Welcome back, or welcome in general, those joining us. Be aware if you change your handle or you change your if you change your user handle, it's going to be really hard for me to recognize you. And the likelihood that I will remember the prior name every time you show up decreases rapidly. I think, Dodd, that is... I don't know what type that would be, but that's kind of like a... that's more of a content genre than a theme, you know? Hello, Sans. As in, you know, you could have jump scare or gore horror that are, or body horror that has a... that uses VHS tapes as a content, you know? The cats that are visible, folks, it's Mason up above and Sherbet down below. Okay. So if we keep lowering this, are we getting tighter? Okay, and then if I do 192 here, we get longer arcs that way. So then if we tighten it up further, oops. It's not quite what we're looking at here. We're really close to what we want. Well, that's what I mean, Dodd, is the visual aesthetic of the game, or of the content of the movie or whatever, having the vibe that I'm watching a VHS tape. Oh, I don't know the name of it. Let's start there. But I feel like it's like how you've separated is like you're saying it lends itself to these types. But that's much more of a presentation vibe. It's kind of like, oh, well, you could call it found footage often. The thing that they did for like Blair Witch or their that kind of thing, where what you're doing is you're looking through. It's presented as if through some particular medium, through a security camera, a camcorder, a VHS tape, that kind of thing, a computer screen. You're getting close to things like a diegetic UI, as in what you're looking at on the screen is meant to be in-world. We just have a lot of the balls so that we can very clearly see the flow of them. How do we get more amplitude? We would need the arc to be slower and the balls to be faster. So if I increase the speed here, okay, no. This can have the opposite effect. They spend more time. The slower the arc, the more time they spend there. So let's now try speeding up. Slowing down further. They move really slow. You can only see the outline until they drop down. There's a balance going on here. I mean, personally, Dad, I find that's down to execution as far as how they, what would it be? As far as how the format or the kind of visual overlay works for it. I kind of feel like analog is a weird name for that, as it implies analog media, and analog media itself I don't think really does anything for what it's presenting, you know? Like, I can very easily put a VHS style recorder filter over say like my stream, but that doesn't change the tone in any way. It's just it is just an overlay at that point, whether I recreate the artifacts very, very cleanly or not is an element of it. I'm more interested in how they manage to weave that into the narrative, and it's that narrative still that delivers a good portion of what's going on. This is assuming that you have something solid and what you're dealing with actually plays into the story pretty well. But, you know, swapping in the little this is in a camera overlay, or this is on a VHS tape, or any of those won't really help unless it is part of the story that's driving it. Now, there are ways you can deliver a story that aids. So a common one is finding pieces of a story through like VHS tapes, like playing them in sequence kind of stuff. They did some of that in, what was it, Inscription, where the story was told over time with VHS tapes. Or, you know, recordings. I'm definitely not going to finish it right now, Lucas. We are sitting here puzzling over a very particular type of movement. There are great horror games that use some of those tools either by necessity or uh, in order to accomplish something. So, let's say Silent Hill 2 is a classic one. The fog. The fog exists only, 100% only, because the way that they were working with the PS2 could not handle rendering everything that they wanted. If the PS2 had been infinitely strong and they had plenty of time to leverage that power, Silent Hill would not have had the fog in it. Now it ended up being fantastic because the fog creates uncertainty that you can't see as much. There could be things in the fog. It is fear of the unknown. It's the constant tool that Lovecraft uses by invoking the ocean. I mean, Lovecraft as much did it because he was scared of everything. Everything. But in a similar fashion, like constrained camera, from the perspective of gameplay, can be infuriating. Because often it gets used as but it increases the horror. It's like, no, the person can definitely see this thing. It's just that you have restricted my camera to not be able to. Your early Resident Evils and whatnot that were constrained by the amount of stuff they could show on the screen and what they would have to load to show more of. It creates a limited line of sight for the player, but that can take you out of the experience because you need to make sure that the people are reacting accordingly. Which in like cinema can be pretty cool, because the people, if convincingly delivering it, can have they can be reacting to something we can't see, and that's where that theater of the mind that you mentioned really comes into play. Where I don't know what that is. I can't see it, but it's clearly scaring you. Some of the found footage stuff will give us glimpses of that. It's often wrecked by other decisions. But having that thing visible out of the corner of the camera at most can be much more effective than showing it to you, you know? And that's why we still have fog in Silent Hill. It's because they realized, oh man, that was a good idea. That works really well. But what you're actually delivering, what you're actually showing to people is more important than the fact that it's through like a VHS tape or through a camera. Even without the trappings, But you can also do that 3D art style with very high fidelity and overlay uh, low FPS and similar to mirror the like VHS or something like that. Uh, you know, the vertical scan, all of those kind of goodies on top of it. And you could also do like, grayscale night vision kind of stuff on top of it and create that. It's the delivery of those low poly is much more important than the fact that they are low poly. Like, for example, there are games that use even lower density than this. Like fewer colors, smaller shapes. This is 16 by 16. As in all of these sprite objects fit in a 16 pixel box. You can go lower than that. You can go higher than that, but still low resolution. There are some popular games out there. There's at least one popular game out there that all of the art is monochrome, or is like very limited color palette, and everything is a shape primitive. So a 2D block or a 2D circle kind of thing. That's the entirety of the game, but you can still deliver personality and gameplay using that. In the same way, I could do, we can point to Crysis, the classic example of we tried to do high fidelity for the sake of high fidelity, and we still screwed it up. Like, the game wasn't good. You can have, really, really crunchy polygons or sprites, but if they don't deliver, like, if I can't look at it and say, and see something about it, then it doesn't work. Okay, I think we're gonna set the S-curve aside for now. We're gonna set the S-curve aside for now because it still feels like there's something we're missing. This was necessary. This flow, I think, is necessary to get generally what we want. This just keeps it clean. Technically, this last time number can infinitely increase, but eventually we're going to hit like a float cap kind of stuff. Yep. I'm really not a fan of, quote unquote retro graphics for the sake of retro graphics. You get a vibe from some folks that you get kind of a good old days vibe. And I look at that and say, well, yeah, but you can do that better. That's not to say that you can't use sprites or something like that, but you could have done better. And sometimes it's hardware limitations that prevented you. Like, I love me some Final Fantasy VI, really do. But more sprite animations, like individualized sprite animations, would have helped them a lot. And there are games right around that same era that did that. To where it's not just the, they play the surprised animation or they're running or something like that. If we're selling that the person is supposed to have tripped and fell over something, animate that. In the same vein, like just referencing regular horror. Oh man, yeah. The early Final Fantasies with like your Octopath Traveler or similar remake would be really cool. You get some of that same vibe of like older graphics. You do more with less. But you up it with modern technology, and it's also an opportunity for a scrub pass, clean up some of the dodgy mechanic choices. But like found footage stuff, one of the things that I really dislike about found footage is implausible camera work. The classic one is holding the camcorder such that it's aiming straight down at your feet. Yep. And that's the thing. You got to deliver. It's whatever choice you make, it's got to deliver. Um, and sometimes it can feel real cheap, like it's obvious what you're trying to do. Every now and then we manage to get some toe beans on camera, Duck. Not super common. Ember tends to be full on napping, but okay, we are going to actually let's make sure that I didn't bork that somehow. I think I did. Cycle time of 1 with 1. 2. What? Every now and then, one of the problems with Godot is that you can actually adjust a script after you start. So it's possible that the keystrokes that you were just doing land at just the wrong moment, and you get things like that transposed line there. And it breaks during compilation time. Let's slow it down more. Okay. We messed something up with this. Appropriately, but yeah. Okay, but this tells us something here. This is slightly different as a result. We want this right in here. Should be the same thing, but let's get the speed out of the algorithm for now. Okay, so cycle time of 2 is forcing that. Let's do a cycle time of 100, as we were doing. Goes to 2. Okay, so the way I've got cycle time set up is it's acting as a cap on whatever last time was. Let's move. I know I said we were moving away from this, but I really want to have this kind of movement lined up. I'm going to set speed to 1 so that we don't have a divider on the amount of time. Okay, that's a full cycle in 1 second. About 1. Let's put it at 1. This is saying that delta never goes over 1. It's a little offset. Okay. If we say 10, it's not changing it at all. This is not what changes it. Should make it really shallow. Yep. This will make it go oops, that's not what I meant. It's looping back in on itself with that pattern. Welcome back. It's faster, it orbits faster, so if we then we want it to be slower. In angle change. Again. So this doesn't seem right. It's too small. I think it's truncating it. All right, Lucas. I try to get the streams posted in advance, so if you want to watch them, you can put reminders on them once they're up. Okay, this makes it really... The multiplier here, or the divisor here, has a massive impact on that arc. I set this to 10. That doesn't really change things. I don't think the cycle time logic here is really mattering. All this is doing is keeping this number below 1. So we do time speed, so we can make it so that the angle changes faster. This should make it shallower the faster it gets. That's not really changing it suddenly. Hey there, Blood Mage. Welcome. Okay, that's changing something different than what we want there. This is correct, mate. Welcome. Oh. Okay, full cycle time shouldn't be here. Oh, just 1 by speed. My monitor setup is such that if I'm looking straight forward, more or less like this, I'm looking at the code screen here. If I look like this, I'm kind of looking at chat, and if I look like this, I'm probably looking up at OBS. Quite right, still. Alright, so we have completely lost our amplitude by doing this here. Let's try that. We have the speed over there in delta already. We're trying that, dude. Okay, that's not right. Okay. Changes very slowly now. Okay, so full cycle time changing so that we still constrain delta, but we're making it so that the speed is currently a divisor on the rate. So this is how slow it goes. So what we really should do is times and 1 divided by. It's not quite right. Sure that that stays afloat. Okay, so how do we make the angle sharper? It's a sine wave, mate. Now I'm trying to figure out how do we make the angle sharper, like to go up more dramatically. Here we can make it a little more coherent looking if we say 1 a second. We need to make sure it doesn't go over 90, though. So we need to increase within limits. Because if we hit 90 and it goes 1 to 80, because we want it to go up here, to be able to go up here, so that it goes way up and way down. Ember has come to snuggle, so. Say, trigonometry is a long ways behind me, so that and, you know, the corresponding geometry. So it needs to go higher sooner. All right, let's see, let's verify what that do. So this is doubling the resultant angle. Which looks actually really cool. I don't hate this. So for reference, here's 4. It's supposed to move to the right. Hello, Ember. I'm aware that you're there. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So where do we need to put that, though? So we're still getting the same shallow curve, though. Or I'm sorry, the long curve, which we can already do. Higher frequency of the curves should be a starting point. Yeah, we want to be able to mess with frequency and amplitude. Right now, we can do a bit of both of them. So this one, it almost arcs into oblivion there. Boing, 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 boing. Algorithm is definitely off again. It's 10. 5 should be 1 up. Yeah. So 0.5 gives us 1 square and about 2 squares in order to cross it. Well, it's 92. Not quite. Still about the same. Four squares now. It's 10 times faster. Yum. Ember says you are ignoring me. Come here. Like speed working that way. So that's just influencing it with it's without speed coming into play. You'll have to expand out some of those variable names. How we do then? Frequency is the 2 points that we want to look at. All right, let's look at that then. Okay, so let's. Oh, the kitties have dodged us, it would seem. Sherbet came over for a snack. Not clear where Mason went. Oh, we had a bit of look at the camera there for a moment. Ember is very photogenic. And she is frequently photogenic. Okay, so let's say we look at that. She is closer to adult size now, Lore, but she is still noticeably the smallest of them. She has a much more, her proportions are more adult cat. Question is, how do we get this? Yeah. Let me give a program a smack here. Let's restart this. My buttons is misbehaving, so there we go. No. All my buttons are misbehaving. Neat. Come on now. Ah. Looking at a formula here. Do that. Okay, so we need to assume that those are essentially 0. If okay, let's try something here. Okay, so we get you out of there. So we're going to say speed times delta times 2. Okay, that's going to get our sign, which is that 0 to 1 value. And then we're going to do times 90. Oh, that's wrong. Okay, we need to change this into an actual angle. Okay, yeah, times 90. I'm trying to translate this spatially, mate. So we're not dealing with XY coordinates, we're dealing with vectors. So the ball isn't just going to kind of teleport into position. The ball is going to be aimed at where it's going for the next part. So we need to convert. One, we need to only be over time based, so it's not over space. So we're dealing with not the delta, we're dealing with last time, I think. Okay, so this is not what we wanted to do, but it's... I mean, there's wave-like behavior happening. Right, so this little bit here should be our equivalent of x. But... oh. But maybe... still no. So like I said, we're not dealing with raw space on an XY graph. This needs to operate over... So there are two variables, extra variables in what we're dealing with. We're getting the curve because we want the metronome. We don't really want... But we still need to trace it. We still need to trace it. Okay. Okay. What if... we need this to be over a particular unit distance per time. So let's say our sine wave is based on speed. The greater the speed, the longer the frequency, essentially, the lower the frequency. Because we're saying that it would move faster over that period, so it's traveling further while it's arcing. We could do it the opposite as well. We could say that it's traveling over it. But so if our... look at that again. Because if we look at this as a, like, we're rotating it, we're going to determine the vector, essentially. So we're not shifting on Y at all. We're not shifting on X. We're not translating it. What we just want is to be able to get that resultant point. Now, so we should only... we need this to be over time. So let me... okay. So we have a projectile that is moving, like, you know, it's moving in a straight line. Right. So what we want to be able to do is have... we're rotating that guy. And we want this to, like, bobble back and forth because it's the vector that matters. I would like this to be... like, I want to be able to get it to be sharper for longer. But so far we can only do that by slowing the rate at which it bobbles back and forth, which is okay, but it's not doing it enough. If... yeah, so I have a vector coming in that has a given velocity already. Yeah, yeah. So we're converting our sine wave into an angle to pivot off of our existing vector. So this is the 90 to negative 90 that I'm using. Let me just put this back here to simulate this. So this wave is a 90 to negative 90 oscillation. Back and forth and back and forth. So it's not that we're actually changing the xy at all. We're taking its existing velocity and pivoting it, which you can see right here. This is its prior vector. This is where it's already moving, and it's moving at a pace of about 1 block a second to the right. So, but we're slowing it down because it's spending some of that time going up, down, up, down. It's losing speed. But what we want is to be able to have that up, down be very sharp. And I think to get that, we're going to have to approximate the algorithm that Mate has been sending me. We're going to have to approximate an actual sine wave. And instead of rotating our existing vector based on the sine wave that we're creating as it stands, a little higher up, let me grab what Mate put in here. Well, here, I will show you what I'm currently using. And this is, I think this coincidentally works. Yeah, there's definitely something wrong here. Like, I'm pretty confident this isn't right. What we're doing is we're saying, okay, take a fraction of 360 degrees. We're converting it to radians because everything in Godot uses radians. And we're passing that into sine, but this is coincidentally working. This is coincidentally working. What we need to do, what I think we need to do, is so here, we're gonna pop that puppy in there. This is with our times 3. This is why I'm saying I coincidentally made that work. The sine wave was acting as the oscillation that I wanted, but it wasn't. So, put it another way. This isn't a sine curve. This is a metronome. But that means that the terminology and the algorithmic things that should work on a sine wave don't work on it. Because again, not a sine wave. So, what we would need to do is identify where we are based on our speed. So our x should be from 0 to that number, to our speed, modified by our delta. So our... Here, I'll send you this so that you get an idea of what's wonky about it. right, we'll switch over to cats for a moment here while we think on it. Said again, I think what we're doing is we're getting a sine-like behavior by rotating it on an angle that is bouncing back and forth at different speeds, but that isn't necessarily giving us full sine wave kind of behavior, and it also means that we aren't able to manipulate it as if it were an actual sine wave. But I think if we take it and we say it's actually a sine wave over a distance, and let's say over our speed, we're trying to make a projectile what wiggles in a controllable, wiggly fashion. So you see how it wiggle, goes up, down. We want to be able to control how high up and down and how often up and down over distance. But the way that we're doing it, the hack that I put in place to do this, is wrong. And to some extent, I'm happy that I'm not popular enough for more people to be here, because I would expect that there's somebody like equivalent to screaming into comments, "You're stupid." So the existing sine function that we have is not really what I think we want to be using, because this is passing in a degree, and it's giving us a 0 to 1 back. So like 90 degrees is 1. I think this is kind of the opposite of what we really want to get, but hey there, barbed wire. Yeah, this... Is this even the method that we want? Am I just looking at the wrong thing? Because if I had an actual sine wave and I got an XY position that was off of 0, so if we assume that it starts at 0, 0, and we don't offset it at all, it's just supposed to be over the course of X, ideally, Laura, I would be able to get a new vector out of this that would let me rotate. If I only got a... If I got like an up-down vector and then I could rotate it based on the current vector's rotation, I could then apply it to the current vector, and that could get us some of that. Because then I would essentially have an amplitude and say, smack it up or down by the amplitude. There's so very much math going on. As an added wrinkle, the sine function takes a degree in radian form. Program speaks in radians. And last time, which Mate has asked me about, is currently 0 to 1. But again, like, what this is going to do is it, like, in its current format, what we get is the equivalent of a an angle between 0 and 360 degrees offset backwards 90 degrees. And what that's creating is it's setting the, essentially we're setting the X back a little bit so that the curve happens along our origin line, along our 0 line. Before it was happening down, always down. But this only really applies to the rotation that we're doing. Yeah, we have a little function that lets us just convert the radians, the degrees to radians. Yes, it does, Blood Mage. So that's what we're doing here, degrees to radians. So for the purposes of degrees and radians, we don't really care about that. We're forcing it into a different shape. I wonder if I do have a pi function. Hey, pi. Okay, that's not quite what we actually want. We don't want to change last time. Okay, it's bouncing along. It tends towards a positive angle. Well, it tends towards an upwards rotation. What do we do? Thing in there. Makes them drift down. So what I want to do is I want to set out to make this fundamentally different. So we want that given x manipulated kind of function. So because if I can get given x, here's y, then we can turn that into what we want. We can still turn it into that by taking a vector from where we're going, kind of thing. Like, if I know given x, then y, I can either have... I either have the y, and I can just apply that vector to our current one and shove it to the side, or I can calculate the rotation. Either way, I feel like the y would be better for us because then we have very good control over everything. But I think both will work. So we essentially want y as a float is equal to sine of 6. Sine of something with x. Because this would be, times 2 for like an increased amplitude. We don't have offsets in here. Okay, we need... Delta times speed is almost always going to be the same thing. We need this to be able to change over an appropriate distance. Last time. So last time could also be influenced by our frequency. How often do we want that frequency in there? So that's not quite right. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, we're saying last time from this. So now we have our Y that we're printing out. And we have anywhere from this to that. Will this get us? Okay, so this is in theory we're getting a very sharp effectively 1 -1 going on here. Speed is 96. Last time is currently a number between 0 and 1. So some fraction of that distance. But this is only changing because of last time. Oh, here. We're not actually adjusting it yet. So we're going to copy you, do this. Not that. Two. Do that 2. No X. Y. Rotated. Move target. Dot angle. Okay. Now we're going to say times 2. No impact. No apparent impact. Wait. Go to here. Nope. Move a little bit. So we are getting multiplication here. We are applying that. Okay. Well, that's just weird. That's not rotated at all. Oh, okay. It's never going to rotate because this is aiming to the right, so of course it won't rotate. Okay. So it's not the rotation. So, if I recall, this is the amplitude multiplier. This is a really nasty vector to apply. Oh. One second. I need to actually apply the vector. Brace for stupid. Okay. Okay, so now we would need to know what the repeating frequency would be. So this should be our frequency should be involved in this. Yep. Thank you. Okay, now it's our X that is throwing things off. Let's just cull this for a moment. Okay, so this is where the offset would come into play. We don't want it starting in this downward. It needs to be up a little bit. So that's where our amplitude would come into play. We would need to account for that. No, it's half the maximum Y. Okay. Oh no, that's still wrong. Well, the position X won't work because the position X is different. because it's not like what we're seeing here is left to right, but there's nothing that requires it to be left to right. So this X increasing over time, it could actually be going this way. Up and left or up and right, that kind of thing. So we need to turn the X into a component of time, and really a component of time accounting for frequency. So if, for example, instead of move right, I'm going to go move straight line. So the reason we're using move right is we want to make sure that we're accounting for this. So to pause, and instead of just that, we're also going to okay, so we are getting rotation. Yeah, right now, the fact that delta has to be involved is going to make things wonky. What we want to do is make it so that we know what X could be, because this is cycling. It's all of the variables are known in advance, and X is the only changing value. But we know that the result of the function has a regular kind of period to it. So if we can tell what that period will be, like how long until it goes up, then down, then back up to 0 again. One, we want it to start at that 0 point always, and that the up should come all the way back up. So we need to kind of slide that period back a little bit. So where does the frequency multiplier come in again? Let me look at that. Buttons. Really shifting, but we kind of are shifting. So frequency. Not sure. Parts of game development that you never really expect. Spatial math is fun, isn't it? Like, right there. So we're kind of getting something that we want. We're kind of getting something that we want, in that we are getting the magnitude of the up-down. Marshmallow, anytime you're dealing with something that you're going to effectively distribute publicly, it's almost universally in your interest to own that IP fully. Because even if you give credit, there are wrinkles to how that would fall as far as intellectual property rights. And that's not something that you want to deal with unless you could get 100% ownership, like them signing over the rights to you. Then there is always the axe hanging over your head of them saying, you don't get to use this anymore. So we're getting what I think is the appropriate rotation. Let's move this back to move right. Because we are getting this nice arc here. It's about 2 squares down, which, given that I'm using 96 as the speed, if we were starting where I wanted it to start, if we were starting a little into the curve, because if we knew based on the algorithm that we had what the period was going to be, then we would have what amounts to the x bounds. We would be able to say, okay, given this period of time. Oh, okay, last time. Yep, the amplitude I think we can get in there properly by having the actual multiplier on here. But we do need to make sure it's an adjustment multiplier. So we don't want to actually change the velocity is the issue. So we need to change how this works, because this is actually a change in velocity, which is why the things sped up and launched themselves into orbit. What we want to do is the harder this speed is, the harder we want this rotation to go, but we don't actually want to change that that vector. So we'll change it to point at the resultant point, but not to actually rotate it that way. So let's start with that and see if we can get some better figures in. Bad variable naming. Position. Plus target movement plus test. This gets us the resultant point. So then equal to okay, this is a mess, but we're forcing it here. Okay, so this is a really brutal way. All right, thanks for joining us, Blood Mage. This is a really brute forcey way to say, Okay, I'm getting the point that this resulted in. Actually. Yeah, we'll get there. So we are going to do equal to test 3. Okay, so we should get largely the same result here. But what this will allow us to do is greatly increase speed. Now, we don't have frequency in there, but we now have amplitude. And again, the algorithm that I'm using for this is ugly as all get out. We can do better. But we have unlocked amplitude. 10 squares. It'll go off screen. No, it's supposed to go off screen. Why you mock me? Okay. Oh, you're right. We've got frequency now. But wait, I thought... Because this should be... Multiplying by this should be amplitude, right? Okay, let's slow it back down here. Okay, so with this, it only gets this far. So we're going about 2 squares down, let's say. Let's get these prints out of there because it's making it messy. So we know last time isn't quite what we want. Because speed is, again, it's just kind of a magnitude thing. So we've removed all other references to speed aside from right here. This doesn't get used anymore. So we're increasing last time over time. That's what's letting us get this, and that's kind of why I want to get the period so that I can truncate last time so it's not unbounded. But so far the things aren't living long enough for that to matter. So essentially, time is equal to x in this operation. Because given the way it's set up, IDE's trying to be helpful. Well, cosine gets us kind of the pattern that we want here. And it will help us eyeball the changes better. Let's double the speed. Speed is very much affecting frequency. This has become a frequency multiplier. That'll be exciting. Watch this. Wait a minute. Okay, now it's definitely amplitude. And we're rotating it. 960. Nope. 960 should be off the screen. So here, let's increase our x velocity coming in. So we've told it it's moving to the right faster when it comes in. And remember, we're pivoting the angle that's coming in. It's not being affected by the x or anything like that. The incoming vector does not impact which angles are resulting from this, or what y is resulting. But the left-right speed, the length of this vector that comes out of it, right here. So the actual speed, the distance that we're trying to move, is determined by what's coming in. So the curve will be longer as that happens. Ultimately, it's going to be about a tiny little robot being swarmed by soldiers. But at the moment, it's about getting this yarn ball to move in an S-curve. So this is... Okay, so this is increasing the speed multiplier of the curve. And here, let's keep that paired, probably how you wanted me to try here. Okay, so we're not quite getting a full one before it gets off screen. Let's do... 284, 288. So increasing the horizontal speed pulls it off the screen that way. Then increasing the speed of essentially our multiplier on the curve here increases our frequency. So let's have fun with that 10 times. All right, Barbed Wire, thanks for swinging through. So at 10 times, we're just about getting to like 3.5 as far as the Y. But we have set our speed multiplier to be the equivalent of move across the entire screen in a second. But we can't seem to exceed a Y value of plus or minus, about 270 or so. Even more so. That Y is capping really low. Just remember, that Y is being multiplied by 1920. Is it? It should be. We need to be here. $55, and in our member values, speed is 1920. Okay, but we are multiplying by delta, which is 0.33. But oh. Let me try something. Nope. Strangely hard, Sam. I thought we were going to get like multiple of these movement patterns done tonight. It was not to be. All right, folks, let's think on this a little bit more for tomorrow. Because one, we got to clean up the vector adjustment. That's a mess. We're really close. There's something about this that isn't quite right, but I think we can get there. Part of it is, I think, last time, or how we're using it, but we've got to see more. We've got to see more how this works. So let's think on this a little bit, and we'll go from there. Yeah. All right, folks. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I hope you had a good time on Let's Do All of the Math Night. Let's do all of the math badly. We're going to be continuing more of this tomorrow. Should be a good time. I will get the stream posted shortly here. ideally right after I'm done, so that you can you can set reminders if you'd like. Now, if you're new to the stream and you haven't already, consider liking, following, subscribing, all those good things. They do help algorithms serve you up more of what you like, given enough time. All right, with all that said, have a good night, everyone.